this is a forgotten place. She says, they're all well and good, but can't you do something about those vacant and abandoned houses? And every person at the meetings go, yeah. And all of a sudden, they're all talking at once. What about the one on New Street? What about the one on Ward Street? What about the one on Park Street? Remember the one they broke into and then it caught on fire? And it's like everybody's animated about these vacant and abandoned houses. And I'm going, oh, what was I thinking, right? A vacant lot is not killing a neighborhood, but a lot of vacant houses is. The other thing that occurred to me at the same time, and I kind of didn't know how to respond to them, was they had been meeting at City Hall every month for 4.5 years about the East Ward. They had been encouraging people to take out loans to fix up houses. They had never once demanded that City Hall do something about that problem. So I knew that was a bad sign, right? So I said to them at the time, I said, listen, if you'll work with us, we'll make a commitment to turn around each and every one of those houses that you think are the really important ones. I can't promise we'll do every one, but the ones that you think are important, if you'll work with us, because we know this is not just a real estate problem. You got to work with us. We'll do it. And that changed our organization. We were 8 years into hands, now 25 years, and that became our reason for being. We defined ourselves as a neighborhood change organization that night. Well, first of all, the work focusing on vacant, troubled houses was very successful. So it was a combination of targeted real estate work. Now, this was really led by Wayne Meyer, who came to Hands 12 years ago. He's here tonight. And I mean, I'll be honest, we were sort of nibbling around the edges and we were pushing this agenda. But it wasn't until he came that he gave some incredible focus to our work. Because getting the hardcore properties that nobody wanted to touch, it's not just that they were beat up and crappy and dilapidated and vandalized. They also had all these legal title problems that were keeping anybody from getting involved in them. And that was, Wayne became our title clearance department, right? And something that no other CDC does. Though he has certainly since taught a lot of them how to do it. So we combined that with community organizing around the issue of vacant and abandoned houses and ridding these neighborhoods. Certain neighborhoods we focused on because they were really collapsing. So that's the question of this high impact. That if we can get the pivotal properties that are really sucking the life out of the block, if we can turn those around, then maybe people will say, oh, the neighborhood's getting better. So maybe I'll fix up my house, maybe I won't move, maybe I'll encourage somebody else to buy here. Other investors will follow us. And this brings us forward. So here's the facts. In 1994 in Orange, there were 392 vacant and deteriorated houses. So now that's 1 in 10 houses. That's a critical amount, right? 1 in 10, that's bad news. Because there were some neighborhoods that didn't have any, right? Other neighborhoods had a lot. So, and 3.5 years later, 3.5 years ago, so this is 1994, so 3.5 years ago is 2007, there were 49. So we had won the war. And in that time, we had actually changed our practice, which was no longer around the residential properties, and we began focusing on vacant and troubled commercial and industrial properties, ones that had contamination left. But back to your question about the high impact, so we were really successful, and all of a sudden the next year, 2008, the numbers jumped up. Now today the number, remember it was 49, that was the low point. So today it's 122, right? So in the meantime, we're creating an arts district. The economy's starting to fall apart, and we realize the neighborhoods are getting eroded again and starting to cycle back down, which is like devastating, because that was a lot of hard work. That was years and years of hard work and a lot of people struggling together, good community organizing, lots of important real estate stuff, and now they're cycling down again. And back to Wayne Meyer, Wayne picks up on the fact that a number of these vacant properties are tied to a big real estate scam. So NJ Affordable Homes and a guy by the name of Wayne Puff, who fortunately now is doing 20 years, hard labor we can only hope. He's doing 20 years, but the properties all got tied up in this, immense bankruptcy proceeding. So what happens when all the properties are in bankruptcy proceeding? Nothing good happens to the properties. So they're sitting in our neighborhoods, they're rotting. All this legal mumbo jumbo's going on, but nothing good's happening in the neighborhoods. So Wayne says, let's jump in. Let's see how many of these properties we can get control of. So that was the launch of Operation Neighborhood Recovery. So Wayne does all this work, and I think of the names. So Operation Neighborhood Recovery, first in the nation that a nonprofit organization bought, not properties, because lots of them have done that. We bought defaulted mortgages on 47 vacant and troubled properties in the urban core of Essex County, so Newark, Irvington, East Orange, and Orange. And we began taking care of those properties. We didn't even own them. All we owned were the mortgages. And just after we bought these, the subprime foreclosure crisis rears its ugly head, and everything starts unraveling. So we were, it sounds weird, just ahead of the curve. And the curve was intervening. So I think we're the first nonprofit organization in the country to buy toxic assets from a bank that's imploding. But we've made a great success of it and have worked through most of those properties, cleared the title. So that's the weird part, is that we didn't even own the properties. Yeah. So we had to raise money to buy a whole bunch of mortgages. That was no easy task. But Wayne kind of whipped everybody together, made them put their money where their mouth was. And we've worked through that. And so now those properties are now assets in their neighborhoods. Even though the neighborhoods are struggling, at least we got control of those early. And now they're contributing rather than helping to pull the neighborhoods down. This is about the evolution of community development. And so, God, time went by fast, didn't it?
I did.
Okay, so here's a couple of things I forgot to say. So our community development work, as we began creating an arts district and we gathered together, so somewhere near 600 people helped to define what this arts district was going to become. And that was over a long period of time with lots of help from 4 universities and other community organizations. We began making this arts district happen. And we put energy and resources into creating a new community arts organization called Valley Arts. And the reason we did that was that we didn't want the arts district just to be, you and me sipping Chardonnay and looking at paintings on a wall. We wanted it to be a place that would draw the culture up from the community and give it expression. That we wanted it to be a really community-rooted arts organization. Sure, we wanted to attract lots of people to come here and spend money, no question about it. But we didn't want it to be only that. And so that's what the Valley Arts Community Arts Organization has become. And then later, people who were involved with HANDS, including Mindy Fullilove, said, we need a center for lifelong learning. where we can figure out how do we make the urban village of the 21st century a just and beautiful city. And I thought, God, that's brilliant. How do we do? So what do? We set up a center for lifelong learning? She says, no. We established the University of Orange. And so together with lots of us, we've now spun off another organization, community organization, but this one's specifically about lifelong learning, and it's about making the urban village of the 21st century a just and beautiful city. University of Orange, a free people's university. So the thing about the foreclosure crisis and the economic downturn in urban neighborhoods was that it got a lot of people saying, well, what's the relevance of community development corporations? Aren't they supposed to be the ones that intervene and make sure that this doesn't happen? They worked for decades to create better neighborhoods. Well, the sad part is that lots of community development corporations lost their way. And they began with the idea that we're guardians of neighborhoods, that we're here to make sure that the forces that might be pulling our neighborhoods apart are challenged, and the forces that might put them back together are promoted and nurtured. But what ended up evolving for lots of community development corporations was that they became developers of government subsidized housing. And this was promoted, that you should do more and more units. You should get more and more subsidy and do more and more units. And then what happens when the subprime foreclosure crisis hits? Who's able to respond? The community development field itself had become something different than we thought than it was. And those of us who came out of community organizing, what we had created, it was now a different thing. And it honestly couldn't respond. And in fact, it was handcuffed because it had, lots of inventory of housing projects they had lots of money invested in, and now all of a sudden in an economic downturn when you can't raise money, they're saying, oh crap, I gotta raise more money for my housing projects that are in neighborhoods that are now unraveling again. So the challenge is this, and this is the Muddy Waters and Chuck Berry. So the community development corporations are Muddy Waters, and they see that the tide is turning. And Chuck Berry is the reinvention of community development. So he's the next wave. So he's the beginning of rock and roll, right, out of the blues. So here's the challenge. So we've begun, Operation Neighborhood Recovery spawned a new community development corporation, Community Asset Preservation Corporation, a high-powered real estate organization that works across neighborhoods but links with community organization in those neighborhoods, and only works in neighborhoods where there's some real people on the ground, there's a real plan for the neighborhood's future, and they can connect with the real, the old school community organizing energy. And because they're a strong and capable real estate organization, they can do things that a community organization can't do. On the other hand, the community organization can do things that they can't do because they've got the relationships in those neighborhoods.